This is the original podcast edition of The Guild of the Cowry Catchers by Abigail Hilton, now part of the complete Pirates of Wefrevane series. The books are available as audiobooks, ebooks, and paperbacks. This podcast originally aired from 2010 to 2014. Stick around after the story for commentary from me, the author, more than a decade later. The Guild of the Cowry Catchers, a novel of pirates and Panamindorah. Written and narrated by Abigail Hilton. Book 2. Flames. Warning: this novel was intended for people who shop in the grown-up section of the bookstore. It is not intended for children or young teens. If you need to ask whether you will be offended, you probably will. Episode 12.
Hi, I'm Hugh from The Way of the Buffalo, a podcast of fiction, stuff, and nonsense. We read short fiction, interview interesting people, play games, and generally do what we feel like. Check us out on iTunes or at wayofthebuffalopodcast.blogspot.com. Previously on the Cowry Catchers podcast, Gerard identifies Gawain as Leopard's bastard son. Silvio uses this as leverage, and the king agrees to allow the Temple Watch and police to search Asia Minor. Leopard remains disdainful and clearly thinks that Gawain will kill them. Gerard and Silvio are temporarily united in their victory over Leopard, but quarrel again when Silvio tries to order Gerard not to join the party going to Asia Minor. Gerard exercises his authority as captain of police to outrank Silvio on land. Gerard extracts a promise from Leopard to care for Thessalin if Gerard is killed on the island. The next day, the Temple sailors follow a sand pilot over the tidal flats to the Great Game Lodge on Asia Minor, where Gawain is waiting for them.
Chapter 29. Gawain.
Superstitions surrounding the priestess and her cult have robbed the Resistance of valuable resources on more than one occasion. Specifically, the Resistance is afraid of accepting defectors from the Temple Sea Watcher police, because fawns believe that dragons can look through the eyes of such shelts, speak inside their heads, and perhaps even control their actions. Such benighted fears must be overcome if the Resistance is to be successful. Gawain, the truth about wyverns.
The main hall of the Great Lodge was as impressive as the rest of the complex. Soaring rafters full of dark shadows. 4 fireplaces, each large enough to walk around inside. Beautiful paintings of the island and its creatures, and an array of stuffed beasts and shelts, some of which Gerard didn't even recognize. In particular, the far wall had the head of some enormous antlered animal that must, in life, have been considerably larger than Alcere. One of the fireplaces stood directly beneath this monstrosity, and one of the many tables had been drawn up before it. The only other group of shelts in the hall were sitting there. They stood as the Sea Watch entered, and Agazumel left the group and came forward. Silvio led the way across the hall. If Gawain could be distracted by shinies, then Silvio certainly intended to distract. He was jingling with bracelets and earrings. He had bells in his tail and a hat trimmed with multicolored Pegasus feathers. His jacket and pants were lavender, trimmed with brilliant yellow and crimson. He'd worn his boots trimmed with down. Gerard doubted that Silvio had worn so many feathers by accident.
Although it doesn't seem like such an insult in a place already full of stuffed fawns.
The Gazumel met them halfway across the room.
Our leader would like to meet with you and you.
He pointed to Silvio and Gerard.
At that table.
He pointed to a table about halfway between the two groups.
The rest can wait here.
Gerard understood immediately. The table was within bowshot, and some shelts on both sides had bows, which would discourage treachery. On the other hand, the table was well out of earshot for casual conversation. Silvio hesitated.
You'd rather have Basil along than me,
thought Gerard, but then Silvio nodded. The messenger moved away, and Silvio and Gerard proceeded to the table.
Let me talk,
hissed Silvio.
Don't touch anything of his unless I tell you to. For God's sakes, don't eat anything.
A Shelt detached himself from the group and came towards them, his lenses flashing in the firelight. A brownish creature that must be his winged wolf came with him. Gerard saw that Gawain's hair was not brown today, but a very pale blue.
Of course.
Many Shavier had hair the same color as their feathers.
No dye today. You've come as yourself.
Gerard could see the Shelts by the fire better now. A handful of Zeds, several Shavier fawns, an Ocelon, and a little red foxling, perhaps the same one that had been in the hold of the water sprite. Gawain reached the table first. He smiled at them.
Silvio Lemire, Gerard Holivar. You can stop there.
Silvio stopped a few paces from the table and gave a chime of his tail.
Gawain Masia.
Gawain raised an eyebrow.
Very good. I knew you were smart, but I didn't think you were that smart.
I'm not. You're just that careless. Gerard says you look a lot like your father. You're not all that good with poison, Princeling.
Gawain laughed, and his eyes crinkled into amused points of light.
Well, he had just tried to recruit me. Caught me a little off guard.
Gerard glowered at him.
I should have taken those lenses.
You should have. You were kind, and I wasn't. However, you don't seem any the worse for it, and in spite of my bad example, I intend for this to be a peaceful conference in which nobody gets poisoned or stabbed. Can we agree to that?
Silvio spread his hands.
Absolutely.
You're not very convincing, Admiral.
Neither are you, Highness.
I really won't harm you.
Said Gawain, his voice growing serious.
Not unless you try to harm me or my Shelts. But just to make certain.
He gave a flick of his hand, and his winged wolf came forward.
Zu will examine you. She has a good nose.
The winged wolf came slouching towards them. The elongated dew-claw and fourth toe of her front legs rose above her back. A thick fold of skin connected the entire arm to a point near her hips. Gerard had never seen even a picture of the creatures, and he tried to imagine what she must look like in the air.
Rather like a kite, perhaps.
In spite of her ungainly silhouette, her movements had a strange grace, serpentine, as though her shoulders had too many joints. Zu's head came to Gerard's waist, but she could almost look Silvio squarely in the eye. Silvio kept looking at Gawain, and didn't flinch as Zu sniffed her way over him, her fangs just visible as she curled her lip to get a better scent. Gerard crouched down and let her examine him as well. Her face looked more like some kind of bat than anything else, with enormous black eyes and huge ears. After a moment, she returned to Silvio. She sniffed at his right hand, then growled. Silvio took off a bangle and tossed it onto the table. Zu returned to her master.
Poison,
she said. Gawain examined the bangle.
What is it?
Silvio smirked.
Why don't you poke around and find out?
Gawain placed the bangle at the end of the table.
Do you wish to have anyone examine me?
Silvio waved a hand.
My own nose works fine, thanks.
He came forward without further invitation and sat down across from Gawain. Gerard sat at the end of the table so that he could see them both. He felt like a witness, or perhaps a bodyguard.
You're the Masian heir,
said Silvio.
So how does that work? Your little Grishnard brother inherits Masia Major and you get Masia Minor?
Gawain shook his head.
I didn't come here to talk about me.
Oh, did we come to talk about me?
Asked Silvio in mock astonishment. He propped his chin in one hand and looked up through his lashes in a way that was almost flirtatious. Gerard might have been disgusted a year ago. Now he wondered what Silvio was doing while he had his opponent's attention elsewhere. If Silvio was trying to make Gawain uncomfortable, then he might have succeeded. The fawn sat back a little.
Well, I suppose we could. I'm curious about why you side with wyverns and Grishnards. Weathervane isn't good to foxlings. It wasn't good to you. Why do you support an abusive system?
Silvio yawned.
Please tell me we didn't come here to discuss philosophy, because if that's the case, I'll excuse myself and go play cards. Kill you later, lovely.
Gwaine refused to be annoyed.
So you don't think about these things? I had supposed you were the sort of shelt who thinks.
Silvio sniffed.
I think I like to win.
So you side with the wyverns because you think they are certain to win?
There, you see, you don't even need me to answer your questions.
Gwaine nodded.
It's a valid position. Amoral, but valid.
I've been called a lot of things, but moral was never one of them. Come to that, I'm somewhat suspicious of altruism in others. You, for instance, helping all these creatures to fight injustice and such. Here you are, a prince with no kingdom, and your daddy's willing, but society isn't. You've got this beautiful island full of fawns who look mostly like you, and so you set out to make fawns a force to be reckoned with in Weathervane. You'd like to make Masia Minor an independent kingdom, and you're anything but disinterested.
Silvio's voice turned to ice.
So don't yap at me about morals and altruism, Masia.
Gerard thought Silvio had hit a nerve because Gwaine's tail fanned briefly, and he gave a bitter little smile.
I used to think you burned my books, but you don't. I found out recently you've been reading them.
Who told you that, Marlowe Snail?
Gwaine ignored him.
I might be willing to trade your sailors for my library. I like my books.
I like them too, and you're welcome to come join them. I think you'd make a nice lampshade.
Gwaine had regained his balance.
Think I'd match the carpet?
Not quite. Might need to dye those feathers.
If you won't give my books back, then perhaps you'll accept another.
Gwaine pulled a slim volume from inside his coat. He laid it in front of Silvio. Gerard saw the title, The Truth About Wyverns. Silvio sniffed it without touching. Gwaine grinned.
It's not poison this time. Take it. Read it. Tell me what you think. Here, Gerard, you can have a copy too. It'll soon be all over Weathervane.
Silvio eyed the books, still without touching them.
Of course, because you've invented a way to mass-produce them, movable type. Clever, but it requires a knowledge of the phonetic that isn't universal in Weathervane, and Grishnard characters are unsuitable for your technique.
Gwaine stared at him.
You figured that out with just... Silvio, what would it take to get you on our side?
I tried to join your side once a long time ago, and your kind lied to me and tried to shoot me.
Gwaine frowned.
I'm sorry about that.
Gerard winced.
Wrong choice of words.
You're sorry. Come to apologize by doing a more thorough job.
Gwaine shook his head.
I came to talk to you and get you to read this. When you're finished, come meet me here.
He slid a scrap of vellum across the table. It was a crude map of Masia Minor with a trail outlined in red. Silvio looked skeptical.
The results of your last map don't make me excited about following this one.
No spiders this time.
Gwaine smiled.
Everyone said we needed a way to open that door in the water sprite. Everyone except me. I knew you'd find it, open it, knew you'd outsmart yourself.
Silvio scowled. Before he could say anything, Gwaine continued.
Don't do that here, though. There's no trick. I won't shoot you or poison you. I'll give you your sailors back even if you do nothing except read that book and tell me what you think about it.
He stood.
You can't leave until morning, but that's not true for us. Good night, Silvio. Gerard.
He turned and walked back towards the nearest door. His winged wolf followed close on his heels, and the group by the fire trailed after him. Silvio waited until they were gone, then stood and stretched. Basil had come up to the table.
So, how's our pirate?
Arrogant.
Silvio handed him the map.
See if this makes any sense to you.
He picked up the book. Gerard had already put his own copy in his pocket. The rest of the sailors had drifted over to the table. Silvio stepped up on the bench and turned to them.
We're leaving in 2 days. Make yourselves comfortable in our assigned lodge.
2 days?
repeated Basil with a frown.
2 days.
Sylvia would say no more. Chapter 30. Right and Wrong.
Not so long ago, moose and their shelts still lived in the isolated heights of Asia Minor. They are gone now, hunted to extinction for their grandeur. They were true giants, but too gentle for the savage place that Wefervain has become.
There were at least 50 bedrooms in the lodge assigned to the Temple Sea Watch, more than enough for everyone to have his own. Silvio had food brought to their common room, inspected all of it himself, and pronounced it both harmless and tasty. The cabinets in the common room turned out to contain books, a variety of instruments, and every card and board game known to Wefervain. The sailors set up a happy clamor downstairs. The meal seemed to include a never-ending supply of alcohol. Gerard had no doubt that the Magians were anxious for hunters to be as drunk as possible before stepping into the jungle. After he finished eating, Gerard went upstairs to his bedroom and read Gawain's book. It wasn't very long, and he was getting better at the phonetic. He read it twice. Afterward, he lay there for a long time, staring up at the ceiling. He forgot to undress. He didn't hear the sounds from downstairs. He was not entirely aware of going to sleep or of waking up. When he finally rose, he saw a dawn light shining through his window. He went looking for Silvio and found him on the balcony that ran along the back of the building, giving a breathtaking view of the cliffs towards the tidal flats and the sea beyond. Gerard leaned against the rail beside him.
Did you read Gawain's book?
Silvio nodded. He was eating a piece of fruit. Gerard said nothing for a moment.
Do you think he's right?
Silvio shrugged.
About what?
That wyverns aren't gods? That they're just a predatory animal? That they treat the islands as a food source? That they only side with the Grishnards because we're larger and more aggressive and can keep everyone else submissive for them?
Silvio shrugged again.
Sure, I mean, that's one way to look at it.
He frowned at Gerard. In the morning light, his pale blue eyes were almost the color of Gawain's hair.
Isn't every god you've ever heard of somewhat parasitic?
Gerard said nothing for a moment.
If he's right, then he's right.
And that means...
It means I am on the wrong side. It means... It changes everything.
He wondered what Thessalyn would say if she had the situation presented to her the way that Gawain had presented it, what she would do if she believed him.
She's the one with the theological training. I wish she was here.
Silvio rolled his eyes.
Gerard, don't be an idiot. When it comes to Morchella, Gawain obviously doesn't know what he's talking about. We both know she can do things he claims not to believe in.
That's true.
He's living in his own little fawn-centered world. He's arrogant, and it's going to cost him.
What did you do to him?
Whispered Gerard.
Did you poison him, Silvio?
No.
Silvio pulled away from the rail with a scowl.
We're not going to talk about this, Gerard. It's better for you not to know.
Gerard didn't see Silvio for the rest of the day. He spent some time walking the extensive grounds of the Great Lodge, following the black iron fence that rose at least 3 times his height. The jungle had been cleared some distance around it. The lodge seemed to be empty, except for Sea Watch and staff. Gerard learned from a Gazumel servant that all the other parties were in the jungle hunting. It was, after all, what they'd come to do. A dozen smaller lodges occupied various safe zones throughout the island, and Grishnard hunting parties often made journeys between these points. The Magians sold simple maps with major trails and lodges marked. They hinted that other trails, and even other lodges, might be discovered by the curious or adventurous. Gerard was disgusted to find cages containing a number of frightened-looking fawns. A Grishnard gamekeeper explained that these were not native to the island. Apparently some Grishnards preferred the easier entertainment of hunting fawns who were as ignorant of Masia Minor as their pursuers. The fawns in the cages could be purchased and turned loose at leisure. If caught, their meat could be cooked to taste by the lodge chefs. The Hunty sailors had stayed up most of the night, and they slept for about half the day. By evening they were boisterous again, gambling and laughing, and singing in the common room. Apparently several of them had shared the cost of a fawn, killed it right outside the gates of the lodge, no pretense of a hunt, and ordered it roasted in grand style for dinner. Silvio was displeased, and the sailors involved earned a reprimand and a threat of a pay cut. However, they hadn't actually disobeyed his orders. The fawn killed had not been local, nor had the sailors been anything but polite and businesslike with the staff. They were annoyed that Silvio would not permit them to hire dancers for entertainment. Gerard came down and watched them for a while. He'd found some interesting books in the cabinets, but he was restless. The contents of Gawain's book ate away at the back of his mind, like vinegar in a troubled stomach. Arundel was sitting at a table in the corner. He had a glass of wine in front of him, but Gerard hadn't seen him do more than sip at it all evening.
What are you thinking? Are you lonely, jealous, angry?
Watching him, Gerard wondered why Arundel had such a reputation for cruelty.
Is it close association with Morchella, a more clumsy version of her character? Is it a trait he's always possessed that she exacerbated, or is he just angry at the world for what's happened to him?
On an impulse, Gerard came over and sat down beside him. Arundel looked at him with mild surprise. He had the same dark, good looks as Gerard, evidence that he had Mountain Grishnard somewhere in his lineage. However, he didn't have Gerard's height or broad shoulders, and his yellow eyes added a disturbing element.
Evening, Gerard.
Good evening, Arundel. I hear you've been spending some time with my griffin.
Arundel hesitated, then nodded.
Have I offended you?
Gerard shook his head.
Alcer gets lonely. He's a sociable creature, and I haven't had as much time with him as I'd like lately.
Arundel took another minute sip from his glass.
Did he tell you any of the things I've said?
About killing Silvio? A few.
Gerard didn't want to talk about Silvio, and he didn't know how to gracefully bring up the topic on his mind, so he just leaned close and whispered.
Arundel, there are ways to keep her out of your mind. You don't have to live like this.
Arundel's eyes fell to his drink, and he laughed softly. He kept laughing just long enough to make Gerard uncomfortable, and then his laughter changed. When he looked up, his pupils were huge and faintly ragged.
Nice try, Gerard.
The voice was all Arundel's, but the tone and timbre were entirely Morchella. His lip curled, baring his teeth, and he hissed.
However, you are getting dangerously close to making me angry, sweet. Better not do that. Really. You'd better not.
Gerard stood up so fast he turned the chair over and backed away. Arundel kept leering at him. It was Morchella's leer, the exact curve of her lip. Gerard turned and headed for the door. It was all he could do not to run.
Dum, 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 dum. Here's another piece of you. Dum, 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 I'm not looking for money. Here's my piece of you. I'm not looking for fame. Am I looking for something? Is another piece of you. Do I want you to blame? All I want is another piece of you. Is a piece of you. Another piece of you. Is a piece of you.
one, not poison.
In spite of their differences, it would be wrong to say that a state of conflict exists between the lawless lands and Wefervain. Certain of the city-states on the coast carry on a brisk trade with merchants from Wefervain. Gawain, the truth about wyverns.
Gerard didn't come out of his room for the rest of the evening. He was beginning to hate Masia Minor. He missed Thessalin acutely. He needed to talk to someone he trusted. He almost wished he hadn't been so firm with Alcere about not trying to sneak onto the island. He wished badly that he wasn't fighting with Silvio. Dawn found him cranky and unrested. He was displeased to learn that they were not leaving the lodge that afternoon. When Silvio said 2 days, he meant 2 full days. They would not be leaving until tomorrow morning. Gerard ran the perimeter of the lodge fence 4 times and felt marginally better. He brought food and a book up to his room and determined to spend a quiet evening there. He didn't want to set eyes on Arundel again before he had to. It was getting late, and he was thinking about undressing for bed when someone knocked on his door. It was one of the Hunty.
Lieutenant Basil sent me to get you. He's down in the common room.
Gerard was surprised.
Why?
The sailor shrugged.
No idea, sir.
Gerard doubted that was true, but the Hunty had already padded off. Gerard followed him downstairs and saw, with relief, that Arundel was not there. In fact, most of the sailors seemed to have gone to bed, and only a handful were playing cards at a table in front of the fire. Basil was sitting there, and Silvio was sitting sideways in his lap, slumped against his chest. Basil was trying to play cards around him, but he was not quite tall enough, and the top of Silvio's head did not fit comfortably under his chin. Basil waved at Gerard.
Come on, it's all dark and nervous. Have a seat. You want to play?
The Hunty looked instantly interested. Gerard was sure that they could smell inexperience like fear.
I don't gamble.
Of course you don't. You mostly just talk and swing that sword of yours.
Is he all right?
Gerard had rarely seen Silvio so completely off guard in public. He was certain that the sailors from the Fang would have been gaping, but these Hunty seemed unsurprised by the sight of their admiral, more or less comatose, in the lap of their commanding officer. The untroubled looks on their faces made him wonder whether they'd sailed with Basil for a long time. Maybe back when Silvio was...
What? Maybe 15. And Basil would have been about 30?
Basil grinned.
You'd think he'd have a high tolerance for alcohol, wouldn't you? But he really doesn't. Half of it's his size, and the other half is that he only drinks when he's really upset. He's terrified of addictive substances, comes from watching his mother smoke herself to death. But I suppose you know all about that.
Gerard didn't, but he could have guessed.
Why is he upset?
Basil played a card, considered his hand, brushed Silvio's hair out of his face.
Because he can't sleep, Gerard.
Gerard wasn't sure what he was expected to do about this. He sat down cautiously. Basil exchanged a few jokes with another player, then ducked his head and said in Silvio's ear,
Sylvie, why don't you talk to Gerard? I know it's what you want. God, you are your own worst enemy.
Silvio stirred, muttered something unintelligible.
You're making me lose this game. If you don't want to play or talk, go to bed. I'll be along in a bit.
Silvio growled like a small, aggravated animal and still didn't open his eyes. Basil sighed, lifted him with an effort, and dumped him in Gerard's lap.
There. He's all yours. Go do whatever it is that you do for him so he can sleep.
Gerard put his arms out to keep Silvio's head from hitting the table. The foxling felt as boneless as a sleeping cat. He made a small, pitiful mew as Basil let go of him, but Basil had already turned back to his cards and seemed determined to show no further interest. Silvio made another unhappy sound and tried to wriggle out of Gerard's lap. Gerard let him go, but then he staggered, and would have hit the floor if Gerard hadn't reached out and caught him.
Silvio,
Silvio looked up at him, a sad, lost expression.
Gerard?
can I take you to your room?
Silvio nodded. Gerard lifted him, cradling him like a child. He looped Silvio's tail so that it wouldn't drag and carried him out of the main hall. Silvio caught a handful of Gerard's coat and buried his face against it. He mumbled something that Gerard couldn't understand.
Why are you doing this to yourself, Silvio? Are you trying not to think about Gawain's book? About whatever you did to him? About what you're going to do?
Gerard found the room Silvio and Basil had been occupying. He had trouble opening the door, with his arms full of foxling, but he managed. He tried to put Silvio down on the bed, but Silvio wouldn't let go, so he just walked around the room for a few moments. He pushed back the curtains and opened the window.
Maybe the cool air will wake you up.
Red moon hung like a drop of blood above the sea.
Silvio, what did you do to Gawain?
He didn't expect Silvio to answer, but after a moment, he whispered,
I made him sick.
Gerard looked down at him.
I shouldn't do this. It's taking advantage.
But he felt that he needed to know.
How? With what? You said no poison, and that winged wolf.
Not poison.
Whispered Silvio, his eyes half shut.
Fleas.
Fleas?
Silvio nodded.
It's a fawn disease.
His voice came out clear. It wasn't slurring. Gerard hoped that meant that he was actually choosing any of this.
Panons can't get it, carried by fleas.
He scooted up against Gerard's shoulder and spoke in his ear.
I put them on his wolf when I tossed that bracelet. Everyone was looking at the shiny.
He giggled, and his voice dropped to a barely audible murmur.
It will kill half the fawns on this island. Anything with a hoof. If the Magians find out, they'll skin us alive. You mustn't tell.
Gerard felt ill. His duty and his honor were at war, and he could no longer tell them apart.
This is why you didn't want me along.
He reminded himself that these fawns were trying to kill him, that they had hostages, that his friend was in distress. He put the rest away.
Silvio, I can keep a secret.
Silvio shifted, slid his arms around Gerard's neck, and kissed him. As drunk as he was, it wasn't a sloppy kiss. It probably would have had a lot of finesse if Gerard hadn't been trying so hard to get out of it. He almost dropped Silvio, almost threw him across the room. Instead, he hugged him tightly enough to force Silvio's head against his shoulder.
What is the matter with you?
Drunk?
Suggested Silvio cheerfully.
I've noticed.
Do you any way you like?
I thought we established I don't want that.
Shalt say so. But then they changed their minds.
Not me.
Silvio sighed.
I've been an ass for the last few days, and now I'm making a nuisance of myself.
A bit.
I'm sorry.
Gerard nearly dropped him in surprise.
I've never heard you say that.
Silvio's voice came out small and sad.
Haven't you?
Gerard sighed.
I suppose I have.
They were quiet for a few moments, and then Gerard said,
I still want to leave, and I still want you to come. Silvio.
But he was sound asleep.
Dum, 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 dum.
You have been listening to The Guild of the Cowry Catchers by Abigail Hilton. Copyright Abigail Hilton. Cowry Catchers is an illustrated podcast. Artwork for this episode was created by Sarah Cloutier. To view these illustrations, and to learn more about this world and its author, visit the website at www.cowrycatchers.com. This podcast included the vocal talents of
Nathan Lowell
as Gerard,
Norm Sherman,
as Silvio,
Chris Lester,
as Gawain,
J. Daniel Sawyer,
as Basil,
Terry Mixon,
as Arundel,
Rish Outfield,
as a Grishnard sailor,
Big Anklovich
as a Gazumel, and a Hunty sailor. Special thanks goes to Brian Lincoln, Charlie Blanchard, and Alex Thomaser for helping with the first pass audio editing for this book. You can find links to their projects on the cast and characters page, and if you haven't visited that page, you really should. There are portraits of the individual characters, photographs of their voice actors, and extra information about both. Sound effects for this podcast were generously provided by SoundSnap and the Free Sound Project. The intro music for this podcast was Grace by Beth Quist. The song All I Want, which appeared both in the episode and as a special outro, was written and performed by Kim Fortner, who is Morchella's voice actor. As soon as I heard this song on her Moment of Kim podcast, I knew that I had to have it, because it fits Morchella's characters so well. Music for Book 2 of Cowry Catchers included selections from Digital Juice at digitaljuice.com and Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. It also included Beth Quist, Diana Rowan, and Jamie Saber, all from Magnatune.net. All music was licensed and used according to the terms of the websites. This is a standard copyright now. This podcast is provided for your personal enjoyment only. You can download and archive the episodes for your personal use. You may not re-upload, mirror, or publicly redistribute the audio files, nor can you alter, remix, or create derivative works. And I'm back. This is 2025 Abby, coming to you with some comments on the episode. First of all, Hugh J. O'Donnell introduced this one. He was doing the Way of the Buffalo podcast at the time. Hugh was a longtime fan of the show, and he had a number of creative projects. It looks to me like the Way of the Buffalo has gone the way of the buffalo. It looks like in 2017 that he stopped doing that podcast, but I'm sure that whatever he was working on now is thriving because he is a creative person and always doing interesting projects. So this episode is packed with interesting stuff. We're near the end of what was then the second book, so a lot of the story threads are coming together. I still think it's particularly satisfying that after hearing quotes from Gwain's book for these entire first two parts of the story, and not always knowing who he was or what it was about, now we finally encounter the book itself that we keep getting these quotes from, and kind of the idea behind it and what impact it's going to have on our protagonists. I'm still happy with the way that plot element came together. We finally have Gawain and Silvio and Gerard in the same room. Gawain and Silvio in the same room particularly is always a good time. And I would like to say more about that, but it would be major spoilers for people who have not read the saga before, so I won't. Gawain's accent, I think I mentioned quite a while back that we decided later that Masia should have a British accent. I had not decided that at the time. I knew all the islands would have a distinct accent, but that was when I was writing the books, before I was even thinking about the audio. So I had not in my head assigned any particular accents to these different places. I just knew they would have an accent. And choosing accents for fantasy regions is always a little bit hard, because you can't just make up an accent. I'm sure that you could. I'm sure it's possible. But it would be tremendously challenging and an unreasonable request from a voice actor. So you have to choose an existing accent and assign it to that particular part of the fantasy world. And all of us have associations and ideas based on where different accents come from. Like, we just invariably associate certain things with certain accents, which is probably an example of inherited prejudice inside of us all. But even if we don't associate them with anything good or bad, we still associate them with that part of the world and that culture and all this stuff. So choosing accents can be hard, but I do think overall it's the best way to tell a story if you choose an existing accent and stick with it for one particular part of the world. It renders the most authentic feeling, I think. So we didn't decide until much later that Masia should have a British accent. I didn't have P.G. Holyfield do Leopard's voice with a British accent, which he certainly would have if I'd asked him to, but we hadn't decided that yet. Here in this scene, you can hear Chris Lester, now Kristen Lester, doing the beginnings of a British accent, kind of just instinctively, like wanting the character to sound like that. That became more pronounced as the story went along, and we ended up deciding to assign that to all the characters from this part of the world later on. But here we had not made that decision yet, and I guess as far as authenticity goes, I could say that Gawain has done many different disguises and has a kind of a flexible identity and is not always speaking in his native accent. Anyway, that just started to kind of materialize in this scene, and later we made more concrete decisions about that. Kim Fortner's song, oh my goodness. She did this song on her own podcast. It was just some art she made, basically. And I emailed her and was like, can I please use this for Cowry Catchers? And she said yes. So I thought it fit extremely well with what was going on in the story here. And then also Terry Mixon, who does both Pharrell and Arundel, the way he does Arendel's voice does sound to me kind of like that flat, deadpan way the character sounds in my head. That's my cat Mochi. He's contributing to the podcast. He would like another piece of you. Buddy! Anyway, I was happy with the way he switched his voice for the possession moment. I thought that he did have a really noticeable timbre change there, and it didn't sound exactly like Kim Fortner, but, you know, close enough. The kind of that sex goddess purr. He got it in there. Anyway, I was pleased with the way that part was acted and the way it came out. It is a very dark part of the saga overall, and I know I've said this from the beginning, but all the trigger warnings for material coming up. I will see you in the next episode. This is Abigail Hilton, and you have been listening to the Pirates of Wefravain saga. Join me on Patreon for early episodes, long-form interviews, forum access, personal updates, and lots of artwork, including maps and species charts. That's patreon.com/Abigail Hilton. If you want the whole story now with no interruptions and some remastering of the early books for sound quality, you can find the entire series at shop.abigailhilton.com, along with all my other novels. The audiobooks are delivered by BookFunnel. Background music was Hidden Sky by Jamie Sieber, licensed from Magnatune.net circa 2014. The Guild of the Cowry Catchers podcast is an audio adaptation of the Pirates of Wefferbane saga, written and produced by Abigail Hilton. Original production copyright 2010. All rights are reserved to the author.